Hi, I'm Dave, welcome to the channel. In this video, I'm going to ruin this perfectly good Ford Anglia. Well, I say ruin it. I'm certainly going to take a few bits off it, strip these decals off, give it a repaint. We'll probably lose the wheels, change that. There's going to be some drastic modification, and we're not going to put all the bits back on afterwards. And there's a reason for that. Now, some time ago, possibly the start of 2023, Scalextric released this, the Duffy Collard National Hotrod, which I panned because it was terrible. They didn't make much effort, they just took the bumpers off, didn't do anything to this, stuck that on in completely the wrong place, used mostly the wrong decals, some of them upside down. Anyway, it was a disaster, and they know it was a disaster, and they were going to do some follow-ups, and they've left it until this year. And now they are going to do a follow-up to this using this body and creating the 306 George Polley National Hot Rod to go presumably with this, and I'm guessing they'll probably do a Barry Lee one afterwards. And they've chosen to do this particular car, which is interesting. I can see why they've chosen to do it. It's the one that requires the least body modifications for the mould that they've got. They're going to need to do a little bit, but not too much. There are a couple of other versions of this car, including this one. Now, this is the one that he won the 1976 World Championship in, and this is the one that I'm going to do. Now, I can talk further about George Polley and the fact that he is probably, for me, my driving god from my youth. He is the hero. He is the man that some people still call the driver. I shall wax lyrical about him somewhat more when Scalextric do release their George Polley Hot Rod. Just for now, just go with me. I'm going to turn this, as best I can, into this. Right then, I'm armed and ready. Now before we start, yes, there will be some hot rod people and some slot car hot rod people screaming at the screen going, somebody's already done this. Yes, I know, lots of people have already made a George Polley 306 National Hot Rod out of a Ford Anglia. I'm not pretending I'm going to be the first. Mine is probably not going to be the best. There are some great modelers out there, but this is me just having a go at it. So there's my disclaimer for that. I haven't got a clue what I'm going to do. I just know what I want to end up with, and I have no real plan. And to prove I have no real plan, I thought, well, what I do need is some bigger steel looking wheels, because you'll note on the original car the wheels are considerably bigger and the arches are cut out. So these things definitely need to happen. So the easiest thing to do for me was to get some of these Pioneer Grand Am style wheels. Now, yes, they are a 5-bolt pattern, but they are a really nice grey steel wheel. So I got these and I thought I'd better get some tyres. So I ordered some tyres, and to prove I've got no real plan here, what I'd forgotten was when I did the Don White Charger, I took a set of these tyres off, so I've already got a set. So these ones will have to be for some future project I haven't dreamt up yet, but we'll get there, I'm sure. So I've got some wheels. I've got a couple of axles that I haven't actually used for anything. They came off a Pioneer Legend, so it'll all fit together. I don't need them to be this long. This one's got a bit of knurling on it, but I think can probably just about nip the end off that and everything will be fine. And that one's a front one, so it doesn't have any knurling on it. And if I can fit them in, I've got some staff slots, very slight, they're a 0.5 millimeter offset brass bushings. So if I can fit those in and just drop this car down a little bit more, that'll be handy as well. Don't know if that's going to work because there's obviously quite a lot of this junk going on here and this junk, which is going to prevent the car from getting too near the ground. However, we'll see how we go there. And again, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make this fit or not, but I have got, because Harry Wise sent me a care package, a slot invasion Scalextric guide conversion. So we might try that. So that's the sketchy bit of plan. Obviously, I need to put this on a diet. I need to get rid of a load of things that I don't need, like lights, glass, windscreen wipers, all of that kind of thing. And then I'm going to concentrate on getting some wheels and some tyres of some sort fitted to this to make it look a bit more National Hot Rod. And then I might Dremel out some of these arches to make it look a bit more like the car in question. So I think a bit of fast forward, a little bit of that silly music that we do, and we'll see where we end up in 30 or 60 seconds time. So here we are, whole pile of pieces we don't need. We don't need windscreen wipers. We don't need windows. We do need the B-pillar out of here, which is just on the glass. So I'm going to have to make a B-pillar for here. But that's okay, because I need to put a front windscreen strut in as well. More of that later. This shell was quite interesting in that the boot lid detaches. Not quite sure why, not quite sure what purpose. Would there be a different shaped boot lid? Maybe one with a big spoiler on the back for a future model? I don't know. They've given themselves some options there though, for whatever reason. So that'll click back in there. The front piece is the front piece, the back piece is the back piece. I do need to try and get this little chromed metal piece off here because I'd like to paint the rest of this white and I don't want to have to mask it up. It'd be easier if I could just pop it off, paint that white and then stick it back on again. So I might see if I can melt whatever glue is holding that on there off with some kind of solvent or something. Not quite sure. Other bits we don't need, light lenses, rear windscreen, and the LED lights that are inside the car, because this car didn't run with them. So all that can go. This just leaves us with these bits. I might have to change the head on this driver because that's the wrong crash helmet. Unless I can find a way of maybe turning it into a better... I don't know. Maybe I'll have to find a head off another car, off another driver and fit that on there. We'll see. The rest of that I think is pretty good. We'll be using all of these bits. And now here's something interesting. Even though this wheel is considerably bigger than this wheel, these tyres do actually fit on here. It's a bit fiddly, but they will go. And so that might be a better solution. Perhaps take a bit of sidewall off these, I'm not sure. Otherwise, these tyres are a bit wider. They are designed for these wheels. The wheels will stick out further than these ones, which is what I want, because again, that's correct to the car. But these are quite considerably bigger at this point, and they are going to need quite a lot of sidewall taken off, about half of it, probably. So, options there. I like the wider tyre. that's going to be quite a lot of work grinding those down. We'll see how it goes. Should be able to get the rear bearings in no problem. The front could be a bit more tricky. I'm not sure there's actually room there to fit these bearings in. I will have a look once I've pulled all of this apart and we can see what else we've got here. I'm going to reuse this gear on this axle, which, as I suspected, will be plenty wide enough once it's trimmed down and miss the knurling. So that's my update so far on what I found. Still don't really have a plan. I'm just going to try some things and hopefully I'll end up with 4 quite fat tyres on here and this being a bit nearer the ground than it started out. We'll see how we go. Bit more fast forward, I think. Okay, let's have a little bit of a catch up as to where I'm at. Now, as you can see, I've got the larger wheels on, and I have, and we'll get to this in a minute, put the offset bearings in the back, which is why the back is a lot lower than the front at the moment. I need to investigate that, see if I can get some of these in the front. More of that in a minute. These tyres are very big, but what I'm going to do is use them as the template because I need to cut out the arches, certainly at the back. I'm going to make that the template and then I'm going to skinny these tyres down a bit so there's a bit more clearance. And probably something similar at the front. I think by the time we're finished they will stick out just enough. I've got a little bit of an extra on there, but I've got some spaces I can put in just to get that front out a little bit more. The other thing I'm going to have to do is take this piece off the bottom. Not entirely sure why it's there, but at the moment it's lower than the wheels. Now I know I'm going to put tyres on, but that's still rubbish ground clearance, so some of this is going to have to get thinned out. If I take this off here, so what I've got at the moment is the offset bushings, which I've managed to fit into the back just by filing out ever so slightly, opening up the plastic that was there that took these previous bushings. I'll push this gear off here and put it onto here and glue it on at some point somewhere down the line. That's fairly straightforward to do. I don't know whether I'll show you that on camera or not. But that's the back set up, hopefully. Now this front, has this kind of affair going on, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to file out this piece of plastic here to make myself a little socket to mount these bearings in, at which point I shall probably mount them that way around and then flip them so that the front of the car comes down, the axle goes up. And then I think I'm going to have to clearance this out a little bit as well before we deal with the guide. So quite a lot to do. I might do that off camera because it's going to be an awful lot of file it a little bit and see. File it a little bit and see. But you get the principle of what I'm going to do before I start here. So I'll be back when I've done more of this. So I did record it, as you saw. What I did was drilled a hole through where the existing hole was for the axle in this plastic, and then widened it out with a rat tail file, both sides. I also had to sort of sculpt out into where this body support is. I haven't gone all the way through the plastic, but I have had to go just to clearance this side of this bushing. And so now, that one fits in there. And that one fits in there. And all of these run nicely. And we now have the same car, but with very big wheels. Now this Slot Invasion USA Scalextric conversion guide is a brilliant piece of kit. The important things at the moment here are the guide, this aluminium collar, and there's a screw for the top. There's some braids and some little finials to hold the wires in when we get to that later. But the guide conversion, you just put that bit in there. The guide will sit nicely in there, and you pop the screw in the top. And that's it. We really do need these available better in this country. So there we are, that's in. Swings nice and freely. We'd easily pass the old Rob from Swift Slots paintbrush test, and probably will once we've put the wires back in. But for now that will do. I can sit this on here, and there is a bit of gap in there at the moment, but what I'm going to do is true these tyres down to lose a bit of diameter off them, all four of them, and then I'll see how far this is sitting away from the base plate, and if I need to I can unscrew that, pop a couple of spacers in there just to pull that back out again. We'll see how we go. So the next thing to do, which I'm definitely not going to film, is putting all four of these tyres on the tyre truer and losing a lot of sidewall. I want to get these down probably to the edge of the writing that's currently on these tyres, possibly a little bit further if I can. So I'll see how that goes. It will take ages. I'm not going to film that. What I will also do, because I need to get on with it as well, is I will just push this gear off here. All this is knurled, but I can push this off, push it onto this one, and then hopefully I should be able to just glue all these wheels to the axles, glue the gear to the axle, and everything will be in place. And from there on in, we should be into body mods. That's the plan. If these tyres don't work out, I've still got the backup plan of putting the old original tyres on they'll probably do. So I'll be back when I've done all of that. Okay, so quite a lot of time has passed, but I have now got a working, running, rolling chassis. I have spent a lot of time pulling these tyres down to a much smaller size. I mean, by compare, that's what I started with. And you can see we are down quite a long way. So that took a very long time. But what I have ended up with, oh, and I did take that downstand piece that didn't need to be there off the bottom because I didn't have a clearance, as I mentioned before. Guide is all wired up. Scalextric, bit stingy with the wiring, so I had to extend them a little bit, but that's okay. That works nicely. Wheels are all fitted. Super glued the gear off the old axle onto this one. Everything's lined up nicely. And very careful with truing the front tyres, so I've got to the point where it will move, but so they are just, the front wheels are just touching, so that is just fine and dandy as it is. So this is starting to look a bit more like a George Polley hot rod. Obviously I've now got to clearance out these arches for these wheels. They are sticking out a nice amount at the front, just as they should do. Now for this, the wonders of 3D printing again. I've printed out 4 circles, about 24 millimeters inside diameter here, because I did a bit of measuring and I think that's where we need to be. So I've done 2 different profiles because the front arch on the Polley hot rod is a chamfered. It probably sit just about like that. Whereas the back is very much pretty much a straight out band all the way around. So I have a different profile for that. And that'll go about there somewhere. And then what I need to do is mark these up and get the Dremel out and very carefully grind away here until this fits, and the same at the front. And then I'll glue those on with some super glue or impact adhesive, something like that. And then there'll be a bit of filling and sanding to go, just to blend these in a bit better. Then after that I need to do some door posts, and I need a front central strut on here, and I need to fill in these holes front and back where the lights should be. And there's a couple of pips that held the glass in the back there. I need to get rid of those as well. So quite a lot more, you know, sanding, fettling and so on, which again I'll probably do off camera because it's going to take me ages, but I've given you an idea of what I'm going to do. Hopefully I'll be back with a nice wide arched Ford Anglia body that fits on the chassis nicely. We'll see how this goes. Again, I'm still busking it really. This might not work. So quite a lot of dremeling later, I have fully cleared wheel arches all the way round. And these are now ready to hopefully accept my wheel arch profiles. Now this one is, as I say, It's got a lip on the inside, and the idea is it pokes forwards, so that should fit up snug in there. Then I can trim the bottom part off that once that's glued in. And this one, which is just an outside bevel, can go on about there. And again, I can trim that off, glue those on, and then I'll probably do a little bit of fine sanding just to blend them in, a little bit of filler work, and like I say, fill in some of these other holes while I'm there. So I shall do that, and then we might get to a point where we can give this just a couple of laps around the track. So after much sanding and filing, much more than I showed you in the video there, even speeded up, I have reached a point where I've now got all 4 wheel arches in and trimmed and sanded back, and I'm fairly happy that they're like the car I'm trying to match. And this whole thing with the bigger wheels is now sitting quite nicely, I think. So as we're getting up to about half an hour in this video now, I think what I'm going to do is just pop this car on the track, do a few laps just to check it's all working okay, and we'll leave it here for now, because in order to finish this car with all of the decoration on it, I need a new piece of kit which hasn't arrived yet. So my plan is I'm going to do a different video next week. Hopefully the bit of kit will have arrived. I can teach myself how to use it, and then we can do part 2 of this, where I finish this off. As always, thanks for taking the time to watch one of my videos. If you liked it, you will find a button specifically for that. Please subscribe to the channel, it's free and it really does help. And if you hit the bell, you'll get a notification the next time I post a video.